first fight up is an absolute banger as we have flyweights going at it. Clayton Carpenter coming in at plus 150, going up against Jose Ochoa, who comes in at minus 175. Now, starting off on the Carpenter side of things, he is riding a 2-fight losing streak, but let's dig into it a little bit, right? He was 8-0 going into that big-time matchup against Tagir Ulanbekov, and that was a fight where, he came in significantly at an experience disadvantage, considering, it was only his third UFC fight. He's going up against Ulanbekov, who has largely been seen as a, potential number one contender. He's obviously had a few hiccups with Tim Elliott and obviously Kyoji Horiguchi, but in terms of experience, Carpenter was at a big disadvantage there. He did manage to get at least one judge to score one round in his favor in that fight, but it was clear that he was getting out grappled, getting beat to the positions, and really didn't have many answers for Ulanbekov's game. Then he tried to bounce back against Jafel Filho in his following matchup, and he found himself in some pretty bad positions early on in that fight, specifically with Filho on his back, threatening with submissions, but we saw great defense from Carpenter until the point he was able to finally get a reversal. Then with about 45 seconds left, we saw Filho clamp on to a Kimura, force the reversal, and eventually get the tap from Carpenter. And I think that was just a small mistake because we saw Carpenter showcase great submission defense, even with Filho in a much more dangerous position on his back, but then he just made a slight mistake with the defense on the Kimura and eventually ended up paying for it. Now he's on a 2-fight losing streak, his only 2 losses as a pro, but this guy is very skilled, training out of the MMA lab, has a solid wrestling base, and he's not a lay-in prayer whatsoever. I believe 6 of his 8 wins have come inside the distance, including that submission victory that he had over Lucas Ochoa. He is still capable of having a very solid UFC career. He's still only 29 years old. He's accruing legitimate experience at this flyweight division, and his hands are also getting better as well, which has been the lower part of his game in the past, right? He's more of a wrestler, likes to grind, likes to get to dominant positions and try to get finishes. Now he's going up against Jose Ochoa, who is now 1-2 in the UFC, but has clearly gained a lot of love from the public, especially after that battle-tested fight that he had against Lonnie Kavanaugh. If you guys remember, that was the UFC debut of both of those guys, but Kavanaugh came in as a pretty big favorite, putting Ochoa at a plus 300 underdog price. I picked Kavanaugh to win that night, but I did sprinkle the Ochoa side as I really believed that Ochoa was going to make that much more competitive than the odds indicated, and it was. Going into that third round, I believe it was 1-1, but it was Kavanaugh who was able to manage to get the win that night. But Ochoa bounced back into the win column, knocking out Cody Durden 11 seconds into the first round, and even though he got taken down twice in that first round, he still had success in terms of working back to his feet. But then he fought a tougher grappler, a guy that was able to get more control and win the fight against Jose Ochoa. Asu Almabayev was able to grind that fight out, and it was a pick'em fight, right? It was the striking and aggressiveness of Ochoa against the grappling and the control of Almabayev, and it was Almabayev's control that ended up allowing him to get the win there and grinding the Peruvian out. Now, Ochoa trains out of Shoot to Box Diego Lima, same camp as Charles Oliveira, Elvis Brenner, and Marco Tulio, who also fights later on in this card. And he brings that type of patented, classic, violent approach, right? Very good Muay Thai, slick submission game when he needs it, but it's obvious that there is a hole in his defensive grappling, at least in terms of stopping takedowns, and that's something that he's going to have to shore up if he hopes to get into title talks in the flyweight division. Now, with him going up against Clayton Carpenter here, we know what this fight's all about, right? It's going to be Carpenter looking to mix his grappling behind his striking, and it's going to be Ochoa looking to get his striking going while defending the takedowns from Carpenter. Now, it's obvious that Almabayev is probably the more experienced and better grappler than Carpenter, but I still think Carpenter has a good enough wrestling game to get Ochoa to the ground a few times. I believe Carpenter is a little bit more aggressive in terms of getting to dominant positions compared to Almabayev, as we saw Almabayev kind of just look to lay and pray. He did get the back a few times of Ochoa and then eventually fell off, where I feel Carpenter will be a little bit better in terms of getting to those dominant positions and threatening with finishes. Now, Ochoa will be throwing up submissions off his back. Carpenter is going to have to really mind his P's and Q's to not get caught in another submission like he did against Filho, but I think those are small things that Carpenter can improve, whereas Ochoa is going to struggle to really keep Carpenter off of him. When he is off, though, when Ochoa is out in open space, he's going to be able to land better shots and really cause Carpenter some issues. But I expect this fight to play out pretty close. I honestly think that it's maybe minus 125 for Ochoa that you can give for him. But I think Carpenter should have that slight favor here because of the wrestling and because of his ability to really put it on guys. I thought Carpenter fought a similar guy to Ochoa and Edgar Chairez. Obviously, Ochoa much better than Chairez, but he fought a guy that was very aggressive, and we still saw Carpenter get to his wrestling and control a lot of those positions. I'm expecting Ochoa to work out of these positions, but I think Carpenter has a good enough gas tank to go a hard 15, landing those takedowns, catching Ochoa off guard with some of these entries as well, and really getting some solid control time. So I believe we start this card off with an upset win for Clayton Carpenter. I know this is going to be a very unpopular pick, especially considering that Carpenter just got submitted last time around by Joel Filho, whose stock is very low, obviously because of that Cody Durden loss recently, but I still believe Carpenter has the potential and the promise to really turn into a solid prospect the way a lot of people expected him to when he first came into the UFC. So I'm going to go Carpenter here. It hurts me because I really like both these guys, but I think Carpenter at plus 150 is the side, and I think he grinds this fight out and wins it on the scorecards.